Right now, somewhere, a couple is falling in love through swipes, texts, and dating apps. 50,000 years ago, none of that existed. No apps, no candlelit dinners, no proposals. Yet every single person alive today exists because ancient humans found ways to attract a mate. So how exactly did our ancestors court, choose partners, and start families without any modern rituals? Today we're diving into the real science of ancient human mating, courtship, and family life. This is not a crude story. It's a fascinating journey through biology, survival, and love. We'll explore rituals, myths, and surprising truths anthropologists have uncovered from bones and cave walls. By the end, you'll never look at a wedding ring or a red rose the same way again. We'll travel from the earliest hominids all the way to the first great civilizations of Egypt. You'll learn why monogamy took hold in some groups, while others practiced multiple partnerships. We'll uncover how fertility became sacred and why childbirth shaped entire ancient belief systems. You'll hear the biggest myths about caveman romance and what the real evidence actually shows. And we'll compare ancient courtship rituals to our modern world of dating apps and marriage law. Let's start at the very beginning, with a question every species on Earth must answer. Survival of any species depends on one simple task: successfully raising the next generation. Early human groups were small, often fewer than 50 people traveling together for safety. Disease, hungry predators, and harsh winters killed many children before they ever reached adulthood. That meant reproduction wasn't only personal, it was essential for the survival of the whole tribe. Every successful birth replaced someone the tribe might lose to a flood, a lion, or a famine. Anthropologists believe strong drives to bond and reproduce quickly developed for exactly this reason. A woman's fertility was closely tied to nutrition, so the food supply shaped reproduction itself. When food ran scarce, fewer children were conceived, a natural population break built by biology. When food was abundant, tribes grew larger, spread outward, and formed brand new settlements nearby. This is why prehistoric art so often celebrates round, fertile figures like the famous Venus statues. These carved figurines, found across ancient Europe, likely symbolized fertility, abundance, and motherhood itself. Some researchers even suggest they were an early form of self-portrait made by pregnant women. Whatever their true purpose, they prove fertility sat at the very center of ancient life. More children also meant more hands for hunting, gathering food, and defending shared tribal territory. A larger family meant more protection in old age, a very practical and ancient kind of love. So choosing a partner was rarely random. It was shaped by the survival needs of the tribe. Choosing a strong, healthy, resourceful partner simply increased the odds that children would survive. This is the biological root of attraction. Survival traits slowly became the traits we find appealing. Over hundreds of thousands of years, these quiet preferences shaped human faces, bodies, and behavior. Let's look closer at exactly what our ancestors found attractive and why it made evolutionary sense. Scientists studying human evolution believe attraction signals developed to advertise good health and strong fertility. Clear skin, symmetrical features, and steady movement suggested someone free of disease or injury. A strong jawline or broad shoulders often hinted at good genes and reliable hunting ability. Wider hips in women were biologically linked to safer childbirth in a dangerous ancient world. None of this was conscious calculation. It was instinct, sculpted slowly by millions of years of evolution. Smell played a much bigger role than most people realize in ancient partner selection. Body scent can signal immune system differences, and people often prefer very different immune profiles. That hidden diversity helps future children resist a much wider range of diseases and illness. Laughter, playfulness, and storytelling likely mattered too, showing off intelligence and social skill. A sharp sense of humor may have signaled a clever, adaptable mind to potential partners. Pair bonding, the tendency to form one lasting attachment, likely developed gradually over generations. Human babies are born extremely helpless, needing years of care before they can survive alone. This unusually long childhood likely pushed early humans towards stronger, longer-lasting partnerships over time. Two committed caregivers simply raised healthier, safer children than one exhausted parent working alone. Oxytocin, a natural bonding hormone, surges during touch, closeness, and especially childbirth in humans. Scientists believe this powerful chemical helped cement emotional attachment between partners across many years. So love, in a biological sense, may simply be evolution's clever tool for cooperation. It kept two adults working together long enough to raise a child into independence. Of course, attraction wasn't only cold survival logic. Ancient people also simply enjoyed connection and closeness. Sharing food, telling stories by firelight, and dancing together all built real emotional closeness. Firelight itself may have extended courtship, giving people more waking hours together after sunset. Groups who mastered fire had more evening hours each day for social bonding and conversation. Some anthropologists argue this nightly gathering around flames helped shape human relationships forever after. So attraction blended biology, practicality, and genuine emotional connection, much like it still does today. Next, let's look at how our ancestors actually turned simple attraction into a real relationship. Courtship among early humans likely involved gifts, shared tasks, and clear displays of personal skill. A skilled hunter might offer fresh meat to a woman he hoped to impress and win over. Archaeologists have found ochre pigments, seashells, and beads used as some of the earliest jewelry. These decorated items likely serve the very same purpose flowers or chocolate serve today. Body paint and decoration helped individuals stand out during large group gatherings and dances. Dance itself may be an ancient courtship display, showing off strength, rhythm, and coordination. Group dances around the fire let many potential partners observe each other at the same time. Singing and rhythmic drumming likely worked the same way, advertising energy, health, and vitality. Some hunter-gatherer societies studied by scientists today still use dance as a central courtship ritual. Anthropologists observing these modern foraging groups can see echoes of ancient patterns firsthand today. In many early societies, courtship also involved family approval, not simply a choice between two people. A match could affect alliances between entire families, so elders often had a strong say. Trading a partner between neighboring groups also helped prevent harmful inbreeding across many generations. Genetic evidence shows ancient humans instinctively avoided mating with close relatives most of the time. This natural avoidance likely came from simply not feeling attraction toward those raised nearby. Scientists call this the familiarity effect. Closeness in childhood quietly dampens later romantic interest. It's the same reason people raised together, even if unrelated, rarely become romantic partners later. So early communities often looked outward, exchanging partners with neighboring tribes for genetic health. This practice also quietly built alliances, trade routes, and peace between separate groups of humans. A single marriage, even in prehistory, could quietly prevent a war between two hungry tribes. Courtship, then, was never purely personal. It was tangled up with politics and group survival. Now let's turn to one of the biggest questions. Were ancient humans naturally monogamous or not? The honest answer from science is complicated. Both patterns appeared, depending on time and place. Some early human groups appear to have formed long-term pair bonds, much like modern couples. Other groups practiced more flexible arrangements, where multiple partnerships helped spread resources and childcare. Anthropologists studying skeletons look at body size differences between males and females for clues. In highly polygamous species, males tend to be much larger than females of the same species. Human males are only modestly larger than females, suggesting a mix of mating strategies over time. This body evidence hints humans were never purely one thing, but flexible depending on circumstances. In resource-scarce environments, monogamous pairs often worked better, since two parents shared the heavy burden. In resource-rich environments, a single successful provider could sometimes support multiple partners and children. Powerful or high-status men in many ancient societies gained access to more than one partner. This pattern appears again and again across history, from tribal chiefs to later kings and emperors. Meanwhile, most ordinary people throughout history lived in simpler, monogamous households out of practical necessity. Raising children took enormous effort, and most families simply couldn't support extra partners or mouths. So polygamy in history was often less about romance and more about wealth and status. Some ancient societies even practiced the reverse, with one woman married to several brothers at once. This rare pattern, called polyandry, helped keep land and resources undivided within a single family. It appeared historically in parts of the Himalayas, where farmland was scarce and precious. So human mating systems were never one single rule. They shifted with environment, wealth, and culture. That flexibility itself may be humanity's greatest evolutionary advantage, adapting relationships to fit circumstances. Now here's where the story gets even more interesting: fertility, childbirth, and population growth. For most of human history, a woman might give birth 8 or more times in her life. Sadly, many of those children did not survive past their first few fragile years of life. Childhood death was so common that surviving to adulthood was itself considered a small miracle. This harsh reality pushed ancient cultures to value large families and celebrate fertility whenever possible. Fertility rituals appear across nearly every ancient culture, from carved statues to seasonal festivals. Many early religions worshipped mother goddess figures, linking human fertility directly to the fertility of the earth. A good harvest and a healthy birth were often celebrated with the very same festivals. Population growth mattered enormously, since more people meant more farmers, builders, and eventually soldiers. As farming spread around 10,000 years ago, human population growth accelerated dramatically worldwide. Settled farming communities could support far more children than small wandering hunting bands ever could. This shift from wandering to farming is sometimes called the first population explosion in human history. More stable food supplies meant women could safely have children more frequently than nomadic life allowed. Early villages soon needed rules about land, marriage, and inheritance as populations kept growing larger. This is really the beginning of what we now recognize as formal marriage and family law. Before we go further, let's pause and bust some of the biggest myths about ancient romance. Myth number 1. Cavemen dragged women away by the hair to force marriage. This is mostly fiction. This image actually comes from old cartoons and movies, not from any real archaeological evidence. Real evidence suggests courtship involved gifts, cooperation, and mutual choice far more than force. Myth number 2. Ancient people married as young children shortly after birth. This is largely false too. Most evidence shows people paired up once they reached physical maturity, similar to later societies. Myth number 3. Ancient women had no say at all in choosing their own partners. In many hunter-gatherer societies, women held real influence over courtship and could reject unwanted suitors. Some early societies were even matrilineal, tracing family lines and property through the mother's side. Myth number 4. Sex in ancient times was entirely public and completely without privacy. Archaeologists have found evidence of private sleeping areas even in shared caves and early homes. Privacy and modesty appear surprisingly early in human history, shaped by climate, culture, and custom. So many popular caveman stereotypes say more about modern imagination than about real ancient behavior. With those myths cleared up, let's travel forward into the first great written civilizations. In ancient Mesopotamia, marriage became a formal, legal contract recorded on clay tablets. These clay contracts listed dowries, property, and the responsibilities each partner owed to the other. The famous Code of Hammurabi even included detailed laws about marriage, adultery, and divorce. Fertility goddesses like Inanna were worshipped with festivals celebrating love, desire, and abundant harvests. In ancient Egypt, marriage was also practical, often arranged to strengthen family wealth and status. Egyptian art frequently shows couples embracing affectionately, suggesting real emotional warmth within marriages. Egyptian women actually held notable legal rights, including the ability to own property and divorce. Royal Egyptian families sometimes practiced sibling marriage to keep the sacred bloodline pure and unbroken. This royal practice was rare and mostly limited to ruling families, not the general population. In ancient Greece, attitudes toward love and partnership were surprisingly complex and widely debated. Greek philosophers like Plato wrote entire dialogues exploring the nature of love and desire. Marriage in Greece was mainly a civic duty, meant to produce legitimate citizens for the city. Meanwhile, Greek mythology overflowed with dramatic love stories, jealous gods, and forbidden romances. In ancient Rome, marriage law became even more detailed, covering property rights and inheritance rules. Roman weddings involved ceremonies, witnesses, and celebrations remarkably similar to modern wedding traditions. Roman poets like Ovid even wrote guidebooks offering advice on courtship and romantic seduction. Across these early civilizations, one pattern repeats. Marriage blended genuine emotion with practical necessity. Love letters, poems, and songs from these cultures reveal real affection beneath the formal contracts. So even in the earliest written records, human beings clearly longed for connection, not just duty. Let's look further outward now, beyond these familiar civilizations, to cultures across the wider world. In parts of ancient China, marriage was heavily influenced by family duty and ancestor worship. Matchmakers played a central role, carefully pairing families based on status, harmony, and fortune. A red thread myth described fate binding future partners together long before they ever actually met. In parts of ancient India, marriage customs varied enormously between different regions and communities. Sacred texts described marriage as a spiritual union meant to support both partners on a shared path. In many indigenous cultures of the Americas, courtship rituals were deeply woven into seasonal ceremonies. Some communities used courting flutes, playing gentle music outside a partner's home as a proposal. In parts of ancient Africa, extended family and community played a major role in every marriage. Bride price customs, where a groom's family offered cattle or goods, symbolized respect and commitment. In Polynesian island cultures, navigation skill and courage were often highly valued in choosing a partner. Tattooing traditions in some island cultures marked status, achievement, and readiness for marriage itself. So across the entire globe, courtship took wildly different forms shaped by climate and culture. Yet one thread connects them all. Humans everywhere built rituals around choosing a life partner. Some of the most moving evidence of ancient love comes from double burials found by archaeologists. In Italy, archaeologists uncovered two skeletons from 6,000 years ago, buried face to face, embracing. Researchers nicknamed them the lovers, and their pose still moves visitors to museums today. Similar double burials, hands linked or arms wrapped together, appear at ancient sites across the world. We can never know their exact story, but the gesture speaks a language that needs no translation. Ancient DNA has also revealed something astonishing. Early humans sometimes had children with Neanderthals. Most people today carry a small percentage of Neanderthal DNA, a quiet echo of ancient encounters. This means the story of human romance isn't only about our species, but about several closely related ones. Scientists also found evidence that ancient people understood some basic methods of family planning. Certain plants and herbal knowledge, passed down through generations, may have helped space out pregnancies. This suggests ancient humans thought carefully and practically about timing, family size, and resources. Far from being purely instinctual, ancient reproduction involved real knowledge, planning, and shared wisdom. Now let's return to something deeply important: how marriage became tied to property and inheritance. As farming created surplus food and personal wealth, people suddenly had property worth passing down. Knowing exactly who a child's biological father was became legally and socially important for inheritance. This need for clear paternity is one major reason many ancient societies emphasized female fidelity. Marriage laws in Mesopotamia, Egypt, Greece, and Rome all included strict rules about adultery and property. These rules weren't purely about morality. They were tightly connected to protecting land and inheritance. Dowries and bride prices formalized these arrangements, turning marriage partly into an economic exchange. This doesn't mean love disappeared. It simply existed alongside very real economic and legal considerations. Many ancient love poems and letters show genuine longing and devotion despite these practical arrangements. So even structured, arranged marriages often grew into real partnerships built on affection over time. Let's now talk about privacy, taboo, and how ideas about intimacy shifted across different eras. In small hunter-gatherer camps, true physical privacy was genuinely difficult, though modesty customs still existed. As permanent homes with separate rooms appeared, private space for couples became far more common. Different cultures developed very different comfort levels around discussing intimacy openly or keeping it private. Some ancient societies celebrated fertility openly through art, festivals, and public sacred ceremonies. Others developed strict codes of modesty, especially as religious institutions grew more powerful over centuries. These shifting attitudes were shaped by religion, climate, population density, and available resources. There's no single ancient attitude toward intimacy. There were thousands, changing constantly across time and place. What stayed constant everywhere was the deep human need for connection, closeness, and belonging. Now let's talk about something remarkable: how ancient people understood their own biology of reproduction. For a very long time, many cultures didn't fully understand the exact biological role of the father. Some ancient traditions believed the mother alone created life, with the father playing a mysterious secondary role. Other cultures developed detailed theories about seeds, blood, and inherited traits passed through both parents. The ancient Greeks debated this question extensively, with philosophers proposing very different, competing biological theories. It wasn't until much later in history that scientists finally understood the true details of conception. This means ancient beliefs about pregnancy were often shaped by mythology as much as observation. Many ancient cultures created elaborate myths to explain the incredible mystery of new human life. These origin myths appear in nearly every culture, from Mesopotamian clay tablets to Greek mythology. Understanding this helps explain why ancient marriage customs were often wrapped in religious ceremony and ritual. If life itself felt like a divine mystery, then creating life naturally felt sacred and important. This sacred framing helps explain the intense cultural focus on fertility symbols throughout ancient art. It also explains why so many ancient festivals centered around harvests, birth, and renewal each year. Let's now compare all of this directly to how relationships and dating work in our modern world. Today, dating apps let us browse thousands of potential partners from the comfort of our own homes. Ancient humans, by contrast, typically chose from a tiny pool of people within their own small tribe. Yet the underlying instincts driving attraction remain surprisingly unchanged after tens of thousands of years. We still notice health, kindness, humor, and confidence, just as our distant ancestors once did. We still exchange gifts, plan special dates, and perform small rituals to show romantic interest. Modern marriage laws about property and inheritance actually trace their roots back to Mesopotamia and Rome. Even the wedding ring has ancient origins, symbolizing an unbroken circle of eternal commitment. Ancient Egyptians are believed to have exchanged simple rings made of woven reeds long ago. So that ring on someone's finger today carries thousands of years of human history within it. Even our modern obsession with fertility, family planning, and population growth echoes very ancient concerns. The tools have changed enormously, but the fundamental human questions have remained remarkably the same. So what can this deep history actually teach us about relationships and love in the present day? First, attraction and bonding are ancient survival tools, not modern inventions or fleeting trends. Second, human relationship structures have always been flexible, shaped by environment, culture, and necessity. Third, marriage has always balanced genuine emotion with very real practical and economic considerations. Fourth, myths about cave people are often more fiction than fact, shaped by modern imagination. And finally, the drive to connect, bond, and build a family is truly ancient and universal. Remember that couple we imagined at the very beginning, swiping through a glowing phone screen? They're doing something nearly identical to what humans have done for hundreds of thousands of years. Searching, signaling, choosing, and hoping to find someone worth building a life alongside. The methods have changed from ochre and seashells to apps and profile photos across the centuries. But the underlying human story remains exactly the same one our ancestors were always writing. A story of survival, connection, curiosity, and the quiet hope of not facing life entirely alone. So the next time you see a couple holding hands, remember the tens of thousands of years behind them. Thank you for exploring this remarkable journey through the ancient science of human love and family. If you enjoyed uncovering these ancient secrets, consider subscribing for more deep dives into human history. Until next time, stay curious about the incredible, ancient story written inside every one of us.